Mate Boys won the first sprint.
Yeah.
And you're just saving your legs here, I guess.
Yeah, basically,
So
because they've been
it's a four. Is it 400 meters? The track.
450. Yeah.
It's quite a big track.
Sorry,
Right.
which one are you? Just to clarify.
I
You are right now.
yeah.
Look at that. Look.
Pink bike.
Yeah. So basically, this looks similar to a tempo race. So normally in tempo race, I know it's a bit different with a 450 meter track because you can't really, on a 250 meter track, it'd be quite easy to say, make sure at the front, at the end of the neutral, and then from there you can you can't really go back too far. Here you are. Here we go, look. There you go, so you won.
No, however that point, you can see there's somebody absolutely gunning my back wheel.
That was the neutral lap, I think. So we've got one more to go. This is the key lap.
Oh,
you are
This is probably the worst I've ever tactically raced in my life for this race.
So you've gone quite long here. 450 meters out.
I think that was the sprint one?
Yeah, that's the first one. So you're here. Having absolutely dug deep already.
Yeah.
Right.
I think what I find really difficult about win-outs is that you basically have to go into the race deciding which position you want. And then if that doesn't work,
yeah,
it's like, I think from that point is where I'm just like, I'm lost because you put in so much effort trying to get your place.
Yeah. Should we rewind and see a big attack here? And just see what you were thinking coming into it. So this is your attack. So you're fairly high here. What are you thinking here?
So this is coming into
this is coming
the sprint lap, isn't it?
Yeah, out of the neutral lap.
Yeah, out of the neutral. I think by that point some of the stronger riders were like further back. I'd missed the one that I wanted. I'd taken one out.
Which is the wheel you'd like? Say if you were, so I don't know these riders, but who's the strongest?
I probably you can I'm trying to point, and you can't see where I'm pointing. Right. See the green, yeah, kind of where you are now. The rider who's like furthest up at the front on the around blue, yeah, there, that's Sean.
Okay, cool. So when you attack here, first courts are, if you look around, do you know these people are on your wheel?
Oh god, it's trying to remember now, isn't it? I think I knew they were on my wheel, but I didn't think they was that like Lucy was that close behind me, who was on second.
Yeah.
Because I think around
my first point of advice to you would be, it's all well and good making a good move, which is fair enough. You've got to try to get off the front somehow. But as soon as you sit down here, especially coming into the banking, it's a good time to look over your right shoulder just to see, or even like between your legs or whatever, just to see if you've got a gap. Because from there, you can make two decisions. You can make a decision whether you commit for the whole 450 laps, which is like a long sprint. If you're doing a 450 meter sprint on the road, that is a very long sprint. Anyway, and then so you can choose if you commit to that, say if you've got a gap and the people behind you have hesitated, or you can sort of see that they're on your wheel and think, you know what, I'm just going to hold the black and sort of look on my right shoulder, over your right shoulder, to see when they kick. So you see here, she's basically using you as a lead out man here.
Yeah.
We've all been there. And you see how she's rushed the gap here. So she let a little gap go. And like here, if you just look over your shoulder, say if you'd have gone a bit easier down that back straight, you might not be in such a hole. So it would mean here, as soon as you see, you can kick again and try and hold her on your hip if you feel like you can do that. And I'll be honest, I feel like you could, if you'd used that energy here that you used down that straight, just to, basically in a more efficient way.
Yeah.
That would have been a way of winning that sprint.
Here's a question. So on the first one, because I was basically like blocked in by riders like in front of me, on the side of me, and behind me, I was basically having to go at their sprint pace. because I was so surrounded. If you don't want to do that because you're like, there was no chance at that point that I'm going to win, what do you do?
I guess when you're in the box, two things you need to think. You need to think, can I push my way out of this box? Be a bit physical. So that normally involves, say, if you were on the front and then you say they're on the front, you're wheel 2, you've got someone coming over you like this.
Yeah.
Here, can you push them out of the way before they get over you, before they get their hips in front of your bars? Because basically, once they've done that, they're in control if they're any good at bike handling. So you got to think, can I push them out of the way? If not, no. Then you need to look back and see, can I back out and then come round them, sort of thing. But then in a race like this, it's a tricky one because it's a very track league sort of race, isn't it? But like in elimination, that's what you'd be thinking. So here,
by this point, I was like tired from the week, tired from the first race, and was like, I've now made 2 massive sprints and I'm trashed.
Yeah. But that's good. You're getting some solid weeks and your fitness has really improved the last 2 weeks. So hopefully in a few weeks' time, you'll definitely see the benefits of that.
Yeah, being able to hang on.
Week, it's been a bit easier week, hasn't it? So hopefully you can feel a bit better at the weekend and sort of see where your legs are at then. But like, it's super important. It's good, in fact, that you do track league when you're so knackered, because if anything, it makes you have to be more tactically astute.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's important to recognise how long a 450 metre sprint is.
Yeah.
So ideally you don't want to commit that far out. So, if you can try to ideally not be on the front of that point, be second, third, fourth wheel, that gives you 2 things. Like, it means the sprinter's shorter, but also you can see what other riders are doing. So therefore, it's more like opportunistic. So if a rider who's particularly strong goes and you think actually there's no way I can beat them in the sprint, you can kind of conserve a bit of energy and wait for a later one. If then nothing happens and it's only half laps to go, you can kind of have a go. And first, it means that you've made the most of an opportunity, but also the energy cost isn't so great. So if it doesn't work out, you might be able to recover. Whereas if you absolutely empty the tank for a full 500 meters, that's going to be really, really, do a lot of damage for later on in the race. Do you know what I mean? So, like, if you think you can probably run a little later to wait and see how the sprint plays out. Do you know what I mean? Maintain position as opposed to like, this is it, 500 meters to go.
Yeah, I think like I end up racing different races because the fields are so different between like track league, the opens, and women's league. They're all so unbelievably varied. So if there's anything like track league or anything where I'm like, I know categorically that like at least half the riders are stronger than me, I will take every wheel I can possibly get. This was the one time, I think, because I never normally make an attack. So in this first one, I was like, oh, I'm feeling, pretty good after the first race. I'll make an effort to go for the first sprint. And then I think I just lost all tactics at that point. So I was like, I just don't know what to do because I'm so tired and I've lost. I had no plan B. I think was the major issue.
Strong, isn't he? So that was a good time to attack. On a positive note, though, your position looks miles better.
I borrowed a different saddle as well, and that really, really helps.
It helps?
Yeah, I tried it last night.
Great, that's brilliant. Right, 2 seconds, I've got to find the other video now. Here we go.
Does that kind of make sense, Charlotte? I think it's very easy to focus on when to attack, and I think that the focus needs to be, as much as you committed to that attack, you need to commit to protecting your position within the bunch. So it's okay to be committed to moving around the bunch and staying kind of near the front of the race and seeing what opportunities it presents. So that's like a focus to have. Is to try and put yourself in a position where you can make the most of opportunities, as opposed to always saying, I'm going to go 100% for that period of time. Do you know what I mean? it's a
Yeah.
slight way of thinking of it. And unfortunately, even at any level, whoever's on the front with 2 laps to go has got to be so much stronger to actually hold it all the way to the line. And that's even more the case on a big track like Herne Hill. On a 250, it's hard enough, but with massive long straights, you've got to be so strong to stay on the front the whole last lap. So yeah, trying to be kind of third, fourth wheels much is a really good option.
Yeah, definitely. I think also if you look at a road race, you don't see Mark Cavendish starting a sprint with 450 meters to go. Like, he leaves it as late as he possibly can, really, without people jumping over the top of him. So say if no one jumped over the top of him, he'd probably leave it to 100 meters to go. And I guess you sort of got to have that mentality that, if they're not, only go as fast as they make you go at the end of the day.
I think a big difference is, I would say, with the like all the sprint stuff and like the training, like I think my sprint is getting better. And I think a big part of it is that I'm so used to like being able to have the energy to kind of do a longer effort, but my sprint was so poor that I'm just not used to being able to be like, okay, cool, I can leave it to the last 150 meters because I'm like, I haven't got a sprint.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, it takes confidence to be able to do it as well. So yeah, it's something that you haven't done before, then it might take a bit of time just to sort of be able to be like, oh, I can do this. And with the training, that will help, because basically what we're trying to do is get you not only to be fitter for like a points race, but also to be able to sort of, to be more explosive. So you can, because you're really good at that sort of 5-minute effort. And that's something I've noticed. But maybe you're, say, like a 20-second sprint, that's sort of a bit of a different ball game.
Completely.
Yeah, really, hopefully in time, as we focus on that as not your weakness, but something that you can work on, then hopefully it'll improve. And you can be able to sort of see that in races and be like, oh, here's John, I out sprinted him this week. He used to beat me. Whatever. Right. So you're in a good position here.
I think, is this coming into the last lap?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at this point everyone else is tired. I was like, I have to do something.
Yeah, but that's good. When everyone's tired, that's when you're going to get away, to be honest.
Yeah. That was actually the only time I scored points in the tempo with the really strong open the other day, was when everyone else had like knackered themselves out halfway through.
Yeah. There we go, look. So that's the end of the win out. Yeah, I think there's a lot to take from that, mainly from a sort of positioning yourself and sort of also when to deliver the power, because you are strong. Right? You can see when you do attack, you do like, it's not like you're the weakest in the race, you know what I mean? But then if you sort of think about it a bit more, what we call it is it sounds a bit harsh. Well, I'm not saying this is you, but so there's riders out there that are very sort of Hmong strength orientated, where they just sort of go, and then they sort of realize, oh, I haven't got it. Whereas if you sort of know when to use your bullets, and also like, then you can win races. And it's something you often see actually with people that are younger, the ones that grow up quicker. They often develop this ability to sort of just be able to sort of just go and get used to people just not being able to respond to them. But the people that are sort of like smaller and then develop a little bit later, they sort of learn. Like Tom Pidcock's a good example of that. He was never massive, but he sort of developed that ability just to be able to sort of read a race quite well tactically.
Yeah, I guess conserve energy when you can, so you can use it when you need to.
Yeah. Right. Here's the next race. 2 seconds. I'm just trying to share. Screen share. Three. Can you see this? 2 seconds. Three.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. So what race is this?
This is the scratch race where I categorically misread the lap board, used the whole race to conserve my energy. Was like, I'm just going to sit on people's wheels. I'm going to be really like save loads of energy, and thought there was 1 lap left to go, and actually it was the last lap.
Oh, we've all been there.
Oh, it's tragic.
Yeah. Well, for this one then, knowing that you did that, should we look at who won the race and how they won the race?
Yeah.
Because who won the race? Do you remember?
For love nor money, I can't remember.
Okay.
I think it might be Lucy actually.
Skip to the end.
Someone in the green candle at the front. She went for a really long attack. Oh, it's in 2 clips though, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's not your fault. Okay, well, we'll just look at the start and just see what's going on, see if we can pick anything out here that might be better.
I was just going to say, well, I mean, let's say in a scratch race, are there any rules that you would follow in terms of if you swing up, how far you drop back in, that kind of stuff? Any kind of little like general principles of positioning, so you're not like at the back and miss a split, something like that.
Yes, you're not just like freestyling it. It does look, when you watch it on TV, it does look very much like everyone's just sort of, oh, they just go to the back whenever. But if you look at it a bit more in depthly, something we've always been taught is when it's easy like this, it's not such a big issue to swing to the back. Also at the start of a race, everyone seems to be a bit more fresh, really. And there's only going to be a move go if someone's lazy and lets a wheel go.
So I guess, the idea of like, if you're putting yourself far enough back, because you don't want to constantly be spitting out the fronts, sitting behind somebody who you think would close a gap if one appears.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's right. So maybe that's something you can think about next time you do track league and scratch races. Just make that your aim for the race. Like every race, you don't have to go into it thinking, oh, I want to win.
Yeah.
Just go into it and think, look, I'm going to get on a strong wheel and a gap's not going to go in front of me. So like this woman here, is she very strong?
Which one?
That's what you need to be thinking when you're on that wheel.
Oh, I see.
And if they're not if they're not strong and you're a bit sort of like, probably shouldn't be on their wheel, then maybe you should try and go on a different wheel.
I think what's really powerful about that as well is ultimately, you can, if you're on the winner's wheel, you're going to get a good result. So, I think for you going into races, you don't necessarily have to think, right, I'm going to be on the front and hit out at this point of the race. You could literally never touch the front of the whole race, pick up a bunch of seconds and have a fantastic night. So, if there are a handful of riders that are particularly strong and those I imagine that are always coming top threes, ultimately, if you're on their wheel, that's where you're going to be as well. So it's easy to have that kind of hero mindset of I have to win the same way that they do, and they might win by clipping off the front with an lap to go. But actually, if you are mid-pack, you can kind of get great results by following, which is a slightly different approach. I think you definitely look like you love a big attack. To follow, careers are made on following people, which is a funny concept. But it's an important one to remember, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because you're never as strong as you are. Unless you're like Wout van Aert, you're never always the strongest person in the race. And making sure you're, like you say, in an omnium, for instance, you might be doing a scratch race, and I'd be saying you need to try and come top 3. You don't necessarily need to risk everything to win it. Like this girl here,
it's consistency.
She's doing a suicide attack, really, because if she gets brought back, she's going to have no legs. So it's just sort of, being consistent. So if you can get 9 times out of 10, if you can get in the top 3 for the first 3 races in Omnium, then you'll be on the podium after the points race. Like I say, just sort of picking up that. And even sometimes when I do a Omnium and I'm in the scratch race, I'll be thinking, I need to save my legs for the other races rather than you see some people, and it's very good when it works out. It's good, and I guess you need to sort of go in there with that mentality beforehand, as if you need to work out whether you're going to risk everything for the win in that particular race. But if you've got
also how you recover from it, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, I have a question. Let's assume no one's off the front, so there's no need. What are your thoughts on basically doing a turn? Because I know in endurance world, if you don't do a turn, it can often cause people to make a few comments, right? And as a sprinter, I've never done a turn in my life. Like even when I used to race on the front, I was like, why would I do that? Like double changes, the whole lot. I was a big fan of those. What are your thoughts when you hit the front? And let's assume, as I say, that no one's down the road, so there's no need to chase. How do you kind of approach that classic question? Someone swings up in front of you, how long a turn do you do?
Yeah, so I think it varies. I think for me, when I do a scratch race, if I'm on a big gear and I'm trying for it to be a sprint, I like to keep the pace high, just because it keeps you on top of the gear, which can sort of save your legs in the long run. So you sort of invest, like I was saying to you the other day, invest for the longer term benefit of having better legs come the end of the race, and it also being the race you want. Because what you could do here, say you were third wheel, you could swing up, not pull a turn, and this is a mistake a lot of people make that aren't necessarily so strong, is they think, oh, I'm going to pull the least amount of turns here. I'm gonna get out of the way before someone else. There's people that did it at nationals, but it actually makes it a cagier race, because it means the people in front of that person have noticed there's a gap and then they're going to go. So it depends what sort of race you want. But if you want a sprintier race, you're better off keeping the pace high. And I'm not talking about going in and being a hero and sort of doing a lap turn. It might be like 15, 20 meters, get aero, sort of take the speed you've got from the rider in front of you, and then change, and then look, whose wheel am I going to get on? Get on the wheel that you want.
That's a really interesting point, mate, because I mean, many people would have said you want for it to be a sprint, you want it to be the lowest speed possible so that everything stays together. But I guess if the speed is balanced right so that it's high enough that it discourages attacks and keeps the whole thing strung out, it's then really predictable and you can sit in quite nicely, as opposed to like a really, if no one comes to it, I suppose it creates like an aggressive race where people suddenly everyone fancies it because the pace has dropped.
Yeah, correct. So that
also ends up so chaotic, doesn't it? If like everybody just keeps swinging up off the front, like it used to happen quite a lot in the women's races last year, because everyone, the pace would start super high, and then everyone's like, I don't want to hold this, I don't want to do that, and then everyone swings up, and then you're all kind of just bunched together, and somebody attacks, and then you catch them, and then it eases, and it's just like this horribly cagey washing machine.
Like lulling, yeah, which is actually worse necessarily than just keeping it at fairly high pace in a single line on the black, which a lot of people, I know it's sort of like the reverse to what you'd think it would be in a way. But yeah, that would be my tip if you want to sprint. If you want an attacking race where you're going to try and get a lap, maybe you are best swinging off when the person in front of you swings off and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's something good to know anyway.
Question: so say there's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 people, they've gone off the front, and then a bunch of people kind of have just gone, oh, I don't want to be the person that chases them down. They've swung up and they've formed a bit of like a small gap.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like sometimes it depends on how strong you feel in comparison to the rest of the field. Or say it's more than 4 people, say it's 6 people and they can just take all the points. Like, how do you gauge how much of an effort you should be putting in to help bridge that?
I guess it depends how much you're willing to risk. I think it also depends how strong you feel compared to other riders in your group. I think it's always important not to be, well, in a breakaway, say if you're in a breakaway and you're off front with 3 riders, my coach would always say, do as much as the person that does the least.
Yeah.
Which is, so basically, you're doing enough, so you're going through, but you're not, like, you're thinking of your legs as glass sort of thing, and you don't want to like shatter. Whereas if you're just drilling it, then you can sort of ruin your legs for later on. And I guess in the race, you need to be thinking that yourself, oh, if I shut that gap now, is that, like, are they just going to sit on me? Or am I going to sort of get across? So basically, this is what we do in road races anyway, especially sort of if a brake's going, often the best thing to do is, if you're going to go with them, attack and get a gap. Don't just gradually, smoothly get across them. Because if you do that, everyone else is like, oh, brilliant.
You just drag everyone else with you.
Whereas if you're making a big effort, they're going to have to make that effort as well, within reason. So it's sort of it depends on you as a rider, whether, but then if you've got someone strong on your wheel that you know is going to close that gap, get out of the way and let them do it.
I think the biggest thing I find issues with is that split second of hesitation. Because as soon as you hesitate, like, really, decision's been made for you, but you don't necessarily know it, or I don't know it. And I'm like, do I go, do I don't? You wait for a split second and then try, and it's like, oh, I've just cacked this entirely.
Yeah. And that's a confidence thing. And it's also like I always say, you've got to be willing to lose a race to win a race. And that's true, because the amount of races I've won. Like, for instance, when I won the national champs, I bridged across with one other rider, but because I didn't feel great, I leant heavily on that rider. I did short turns, just kept the speed high, but didn't. I made him feel like I was swinging, so he was like, "Oh shit, I've got to get across because Will's not going to drag me across." And then I was able to go over the top of him once we got to the group, and that's something it's quite funny actually, because some people always go, "Oh, I feel rubbish today," and you can win races when you feel rubbish because you're often more lazy, but sort of think about things a bit more. Whereas if I was, say, on that day, if I was feeling normal, I probably would have dragged him across, and he'd have probably done the same to me. So yeah, it depends on you, and it's also, yeah. I mean, we can say all these things. There's very similar. Some things are very similar in bunch races that come up quite a lot. That's why I say them. It's not like, I know I can't predict the future, but if you can do certain things, often the outcome can be what you want. Sorry, I feel like I'm bombarding you with.
No, it all makes no sense. Just like, I know we're supposed to be going through the videos, but like going back to the thing actually, I think that Pete was saying earlier of like, okay, so first half of the race you're kind of swinging kind of to the back, and because everyone's fairly similar kind of strength. Also, I guess this massively varies between like this size track and an indoor track. At what point, say, I don't know, say it's a 15 lap scratch race here on 450. At what point would you start to be swinging kind of mid bunch, kind of finding those wheels that you want to follow?
So that's often, I'll do that when the pace is high. So say if you can see gaps. So often when I'm on the front, I look to my left. It's easier on an indoor track because it's a bit smaller, so you can sort of see the line a bit more. Or even when you swing up, look down, and if there's gaps appearing, get in them gaps and get on a strong wheel. Don't go to the back, because if you go to the back, those gaps are gone, and then you're wasting energy.
But if, say, there are, like, sorry to ask, like, there's a lot of times where I think in women specifically, because we all know each other quite well, and everyone is kind of like fairly evenly matched. A lot of the time, everyone is still quite close together, and you do have to, if you're going to go in the middle, you have to kind of bully someone out of it, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, I think I always struggle to know at what point I switch from trying to like conserve energy to being like, actually, no, that's the place that I want. Also, because I'm terrible at counting. I hate points races because I can't count for shit.
No, yeah, that is, you're right. You just got to be a bit of a, not a bit of a prick, and just sort of get into the gap you want to get into, really.
I think the way you get in the gap's quite important as well. So it's quite, say you wanted to, to drop in mid group, it's quite tempting to almost not really change and just kind of drift back down the group, like looking for a gap the whole way. But if you do that, no one will let you in. Whereas if you do want to get in, you literally swing up like you normally would do, pick where you're going to go, and then obviously don't smash into them, but ride down in like a really assertive way, just in front of their bars. So you kind of just overlapping your front wheel, the back wheel of the one you want to be on. So you're kind of being intimidating, and then they're more likely to let you in. So if you just kind of drift back, no one will let you in. You've got to kind of be quite assertive with it, and they'll see you come down, and it's just more natural to let somebody in who's dropping down quite strong. So the way you do it is really important also. Yeah,
for sure. And the hips and the bars thing is something that also comes in handy there. So if your hips are in front of their bars and you're slowing yourself down, so this is the wheel in front, you're slowing yourself down onto their wheel, squeezing them, unless they're stupid, they'll carry on. But
like I do always try and kind of be fairly sensible as well. Like I'll kind of try and swing in front of somebody who I know is less likely to absolutely battle me for that position. Because there are people who just won't move, and you're kind of just like, okay, this is a terrible idea. So now I'm just sat in all of the wind. I just think, I don't know, I often, there's been a couple of races where I've done okay because I've managed to find a good wheel right at the back, but I didn't know where to position myself. So rather than like, say, with 2 laps to go swinging into the middle, I've accidentally swung to the back, and then you've got so much further to go.
Yeah, for sure. That's where you just need to be assertive, really. And maybe, who knows, if you get in front of someone that normally doesn't let anyone in, maybe everyone else will think, oh bloody hell, like she's got him out of the way.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So yeah, I think don't ever like feel intimidated on the track, because at the end of the day, they're all bare bums in the shower, as they say. Yeah, anyway, let's carry on with this.
Things like that get staying.
Yeah, it's something you have to think about when you're racing against like Viviani and stuff. You just got to think he's a human. Yeah, so look, if you're here, the group's doing quite a good job here, just keeping that rider at that gap. And I would not be worried really about that rider, because it's just one rider. If that was more than one rider, 2, 3 riders, it might be more of an issue. If you keep the group rolling along like this nicely, and like I said earlier, just pull your turn. Like, see, that's a perfect example there. You see there how sorry, I'm just trying to rewind. In this change, I don't know if you can see, that guy swung up with the other guy.
That
slowed the whole group down, and the momentum's gone again, and everyone's bunched up again. See, whereas if you keep the speed someone else gives you like this, maybe swing off like that, nice. And everyone will sort of invest, and the closer this person is to the group, the more the person on the front has an incentive. It's like having a carrot on a stick, unless they haven't got the legs, which can be the case. So how many laps? Oh, I've got 3 minutes to go still.
What's your so something that we're often kind of taught, if you want to slightly dictate it a little bit, like a race a little bit more, is like when you get on the front, kind of kicking in the hopes that more people will it'll kind of get rid of stragglers off the back and kind of help string things out a little bit more. I guess it's just knowing when. Because also sometimes people don't follow you and you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've never really done that. I never really tried to. I guess if you want to make the race hard, you just make it fast, and the people that can't hold the wheel won't hold the wheel. I guess that's the difference. Like, some of the races you're doing probably have quite a big range in abilities. Like, for instance, here, these 3 here are already spat, just because the pace increased for like 3/4 of a lap.
Yeah.
So yeah, it probably is quite a good. Well, is a good way of sort of narrowing it down. Because at the end of the day, if there's only 5 riders to sprint against, it's better than 11 or 12. But yeah, I guess that's sort of like a mini attack, isn't it? See how it's bunched up, and there's just no incentive now. So it's a good time to attack.
Yeah, I think we would get it's either I think maybe like a lap or 2 to go.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it happens quite a lot in the women's races, is that it does just end up very kind of cagey.
Yeah.
Can't tell that man is ringing the bell, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 1 lap to go here.
Yeah, which is when I realised, oh shit, I'm definitely in the wrong place.
Yeah. But then still, it's still a long old lap. I mean, the wheel you're on is not really going forward. You'd have better off being on this wheel. I know that's easy to say now, but
I think, well, the problem was that I was trying, I thought I had 1 more lap to go, so I was like slowly moving my way up as that happened, but then she did leave me out though, so that was all right.
That's the girl that was off the front, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She's got legs.
Super strong.
Should we go back 1 lap to go and just? I mean, I appreciate you miscounted the lap, Charlotte, but just to have a look and see where you could have been, or whether those front 3 riders were when it kind of the sprint started.
So, in an ideal situation, where would you want to be in this group, Charlotte? Say if you got the laps right, where would you be?
The rider who is 3rd up, where you were just there behind her.
Yeah, so you'd want to be on her wheel. I think that's correct. Just trying to see what happened. You just didn't have the legs to get around, did you?
Yeah, I think someone had basically swung up in front of the rider who was in front of me, and then they couldn't get around them to then carry that.
That's still, you see here though, if I was sprinting, sorry, have I just rewound? Oh no, what have I done? This is still a long way to go.
Yeah.
He started his sprint coming out of this this second corner, and now he's run out of gas. Whereas,
Don't forget the little girls, mate.
oh sorry.
So one thing as well from a sprint sense, and a lot of when you get to 2 laps to go, there's a lot of similarities between a scratch race and the keirin. Is looking at the pace of the race. So if you're 7th or 8th wheel, and you're gonna have to get in the top 3, you're gonna have to overtake a lot of people. So if with 1 lap to go, the people on the front of the race are looking over their shoulders, you're not on sprint speed yet. So that's then the opportunity to move up, because as soon as they do, then it's going to be very difficult to overtake. The pace of the race is kind of based on the rider who's at the front. So if you have a strong rider on the front going really, really hard, it's going to be very difficult to move up. So it's important that you look at the speed of the race and make a judgment on when you do that. So with 1 lap to go here, we can see the front rider looking over their shoulder and waiting. So that means that you're not going really, really fast just yet, and it's an opportunity to move up. If the flip side of that had happened, if you think when you attacked 1 lap to go, you were going really, really, really strong. So in that scenario, if you have a rider on the front going really, really strong, you're better to wait, because they are going to fatigue, and you might be able to pick off people in the last half lap, or when that front rider fatigues. So it's really important to think about what the pace of the race is. It's strung out on the black, someone's absolutely emptying the tank on the front, you're going to have to wait for that lull when they start to drop off and be able to overtake. It's going to be difficult to overtake people when they feel really fresh. But equally, if they're not on race pace and they're going a bit slower, then you have to be the first one to make the move to some extent, because when they do, there's so little distance to go, they're not really going to slow down as they approach the line. So if you'd have unloaded in this race, because you're 7th or 8th wheel with 1 lap to go, nobody's really committed. Whoever goes first is probably going to have a bit of an advantage, particularly from the back of the race. Whereas if you wait for those front 3 to really drill it, they're going to be kind of fresher towards the end, because the sprint's starting a little bit later than in the one before. Does that kind of make sense?
I think what I misjudged in this, because by this point I was tired, fatigue had built up, and everything kind of been going that way, and I'd basically been using the whole race to save energy. What I think I was hoping was that the person whose wheel I was on was going to do that. She's like the person who's quite a strong rider, and I was expecting her to kind of start moving up, and so I could stay on her wheel for as long as possible. But I think just as soon as I realised there was 1 lap to go, I should have just gone, sack this isn't working, and just gone over and around her.
Yeah, exactly, because the pace of the race is quite slow. So if you're not trying, nobody else is. So if you're thinking, I'm hoping she's going to go, I'm kind of waiting, everyone else is thinking the same thing. So if it work, if you're in the front 3, to wait and respond is good. But if you're in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th wheel, and with 500 meters to go, the pace is really low, you've got to go, because if you wait any longer, as soon as those front 3 go, they're not going to slow down, because there's just not that much of the race left. So you can see how the circumstances are slightly different. In the previous race, you were at the front, so you didn't need to go 100%. You want to pace it and save energy. If you're in 7th or 8th wheel, if the pace is super high, you might want to wait and see if that front rider blows, like they've already gone 100% basically. But if they're waiting like this, the longer you leave it, the harder it is, or the less likely it is to be successful, because that front rider isn't going to be slowing down in the same way when they go. Does that kind of make sense?
Say like I'm sat on this woman's wheel, and we're kind of like hovering, kind of maybe like the 3rd row back or something, as we're coming into it. Is this so like I'm following her wheel, hoping that she'll kind of take us around. At what point here would you say to like make that move? And is that move just go all the way around and go like get to the front, or is it?
Yeah. So I mean, so in this particular scenario, it's around the lap to go when they're looking at each other. You want to be the first one to go, and you basically go 100% until you get to the black line. So if you got to the black line really quickly and we're on the black with like 350 to go, because then you can have a look over your shoulder like in the previous race. If you never got to the front kind of thing, you just sprint the whole way. Do you know what I mean? Unless you end up on a wheel. So in this scenario, you should have attacked with a lap to go. Stay 100% until you get to the front, unless someone steps out and tows you over. Do you know what I mean?
I just worry. I think because like I'm the only reason why I've never done that, and you're the expert. I think my concern has always been that I've seen so many people just get rolled, like just get complete like. Even if like, so I worry that if I'd like attacked and got to the black line like here, even if I'm in front, then that gives room like everybody that was behind me to come round, and then just like you just get completely consumed by everyone who's come over you.
Which is true. I think if you hit the front with half a lap to go, like that's when you get to the front, you're unlikely to get swamped. You know, there's only 200 meters to go at that point. And the flip side of that is if you wait, you're expecting yourself to overtake 9 people in the last half lap, which is going to be impossible. So, you know, it is best to be in the front 4 riders with 1 lap to go. You know, that's the best place to be. But if you're further back, you need to be seeing something earlier, unless you're at a super high race pace with riders in front of you that are going to die a death, basically. Then you can wait. Yeah. You might get past 8 of them if they're absolutely hanging for the last down the home straight, you know, because they've been drag racing for bloody ages. That it just depends. What the subtle difference here is when we said in the previous race where you did get rolled, that's because you were on the front with that. Yeah. Different to this race where you're in around 8th place.
I guess it's also the same thing that you were saying earlier of like if you're going to make an attack, it's got to be decisive. You've got to just go for it, hoping also that somebody's not going to be completely on your wheel and you're just dragging them around the whole time.
Yeah, and if they are, as you said, then you just look and go again. You know, then you look.
Yeah.
And watch and wait and try and get them on the hip. The only thing you don't want to do if they're on your wheel is just empty the tank and then be blowing towards the line, because they'll just leave you out there and roll you at the end. Whereas if you can save like 5% in reserve and get them on the hip, then that's where you might you know, if you can keep them there, that's to your advantage because they're going to get in the way of the people from behind as well. So
I guess that just comes with that's the practice, isn't it?
I need to shoot and get my kids from school. You guys can finish off obviously this call, but I will stop recording and I have to leave. I need to make a phone call to say I'm sorry. I'm going to be late.
Yeah. You meant to go quarter, weren't you?
Yes, indeed. So I will press stop. But Carol, I'm not sure how I end the meeting, so I'll leave it running basically. So you'll be looking at my office, but I'll leave you guys to it. Nice to see you, Charlotte. And
Likewise.
see you soon.
See you later.